Welcome along to another edition of Tipp Cast Oct. Shane Brophy, sports editor of the Guardian, joined once again by local reporter Noel Dundon. Noel, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Shane. How are things?
Good. Noel, I suppose last weekend, quarter-final weekend, I suppose it's the one we always look forward to in Tipperary. I suppose in terms of senior, probably didn't get some of the contests we expected. We got one outstanding, dramatic game. But we probably got, probably Saturday's game, they probably went along expected lines, maybe in terms of, I know you were there in the Saturday games, that we got the winners we expected, but probably not the contests we would have foreseen beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Shane. Yeah, we would have predicted Saturday probably as being the more attractive of the 2 days. And while the outcomes were along expected lines, all right, I don't think the actual games are along the lines we expected. I think we thought that they'd be far closer and far more in them, and I suppose that's probably in lots of ways that's a tribute to the work that Holy Cross, Ballycal and Lockmore Castellani did to secure the games early on and to kind of make sure that they were the ones who were leading all the way, more or less. Cashel, I thought, would have brought a stronger contest, and I suppose the dismissal then of O'Connelly didn't help them either, with that straight red card, which was it looked very harsh to me, but that's the way it is when there's any sort of contact with the head area at all, or the upper body or head area. You're going to walk for it in the modern game, unfortunately. And in the second game, then Lockmore Castellani, well, they just do what Lockmore Castellani do. They just rolled along and saw out the victory without any great fuss at all. I was a little bit disappointed with the Tumivara team that they didn't sort of have a real go at it. They were still playing, kind of defensively maybe in the second half when they were quite a bit down. But look, that, as I said, that's what Lockmore do to you. They're the kind of team that really win. And before you know it, the game is in the final moments and you're 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 points down,
Yeah, I suppose we might start with the first one. Holy Cross 423, Cashel 217. I suppose we were chatting about it, myself and Gary Toohey of Clubber TV last week, and I was sort of wondering what we would see from Holy Cross. Like, I know you're living there, that just wondering, had the edge gone off them after qualifying and with the Clonmulgee defeat and then the under-19 loss to Cashel? Or would those defeats spur as a bit of a kick up the backside? Okay, lads, we're going well, but we're not the finished article by any means. And it was definitely the latter.
Yeah, it probably was. I mean, the under-19 defeat was it was a poor performance from the team, and one that is very uncharacteristic of that bunch of players, because they've been such great winners, I suppose, but not just winners, but they've been great representatives of the club over the last 5 or 6 years since they came right the way through, even longer since they came through at kind of under 12, under 13 level. They've won county championships all the way along. And I suppose that can happen with a team. You'll hit a bad day, the kind of a day when 5 or 6 of your marquee players aren't on their game, and that gives the opposition a big chance then. But I think Saturday, though, was a different ball game, and I'd watched the senior training quite a bit, and they looked really, really sharp and really, really focused. And I would say also, Shane, that one of the big benefits that Holy Cross have this year is the fact that the junior team is still in the county championship as well. Indeed, they play Nina in the county semi-final next weekend as well, as I think it is. I think it's fixed for next weekend too.
I think it's gone back a week because of both are playing on different days in senior, so it's hard to find an alternative. So
that's it. But the fact that you have 44, 45 players training in what we can now call the depths of winter, usually under floodlights, it creates a real buzz around the place, and it creates a real sort of an atmosphere within the camp, the camp being the two teams, because they're all working together. And I think that really spurs lads on as well. We probably saw that bounce last Saturday afternoon. I think they went about their business very, very well. The forwards were lethal as well. And I think probably, Semple Stadium suited their style of play, and they're in the fortunate position that they're going to be playing the rest of their games, whether that's 1 or 2 more matches in Semple Stadium too,
And just in terms of their setup, like how, I suppose, it was Brian O'Mara's first start, and where did they, now that they had him and Jim Ryan, like how did they line up themselves? I think Joe Caesar was in the middle of the field, was he?
Yeah, and he played at some of the game more advanced as well. Even they're in the fortunate position that they can interchange very easily, and a little bit like the Tipp senior team did with Brian O'Mara interchanging there with Ronan Marr or with whoever was going to be across the half back line, Owen Connolly at times, and Willie Connors in the All Ireland final. Holy Cross are doing the same with Jim Ryan and Brian O'Mara as well. And Joe Caesar. Joe can slip back into the defence as well if needs be, as can Ty Gould. So that there's a very mobile middle third there, if you or that diamond that, as maybe the soccer pundits might refer to it, where players can move up and back and around. But I think one of the foundation stones to Holy Cross this year, and one of their key positionings is that of Cathal Barrett on the edge of the square. I mean, he was outstanding last Saturday, and we got a second yellow card before the end, but the game was well won at that stage. But really, really solid, really up for it, showing really good form. And when your full back is hurrying like that and driving the team forward like that, he's a big influence in that team in a different way to maybe the likes of Joe Caesar, who'd be more of a quieter character, but would go about his business in a very efficient manner. So I think one of the key things is that they have leaders all over the field. As I mentioned, the attacking division was very much on their game, but when you've got Joe, and Joe is playing with a broken finger all the time, and still managing to get through matches. He came off near the end the last day when the game was in the bag, but there's a very, very good spine of a team there. They're a young team, but there's a spine of experience there too, and I think that's showing when it comes to pressurized games like last week was, and like the semi-final will be.
Yeah, and like it was that Dara Woods is back in his playground of Semple Stadium. Like I think he finds an extra bit of he just finds something extra when he gets in there. He scores some of the most outrageous points you'll see, and like that's having that sort of I would just say a player with belief like that, and like with ability like that, and like an already elite forward line. And I think one player I think that he's playing a key role, and it leads to the unheralded guys that have been in the team, like Mikey Nally in the group stage was very, very big, and like Owen Craddock is another guy that's having a really big season.
Yeah, the two players that you mentioned have been crucial to the team and to the balance of the team as well, because when you look at the likes of Robbie Ryan and Tiernan Ryan, David Fogarty and Dara Woods, like they're all what you might
maybe finishers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, David will be a very busy player around the field and puts himself about a good bit. But the others will be real finishers who will be, if you want to describe them as being maybe non-combative type of players, But the likes of Mikey Nally and Owen Craddock are the ones who are able to break up that play and toss the ball off to the player coming off the shoulder and that, So they're vital in the modern game too. Like you have to have your ball winners there. Not saying that the lads can't win their own ball, because they certainly can, but it's just that when you have focal points to play the ball too, and then your other players are coming off them, it's a big thing for a forward line. And I think Holy Cross have got that balance really right this year, thanks to the fact that those younger players have come through. Mikey Nally wouldn't have been a senior player, seen as a senior player a couple of years ago, but he's really, really worked on his game, on his fitness, to become a big part of that Holy Cross Ballycal forward line now,
And just before we move on, just a word on Cashel, like a great season for them. Getting back first year, back up senior, getting to a quarter final, just probably came up against a team who were a level above, and I suppose they're a couple of years further down the road in terms of experience, even though Holy Cross will be largely a young team, but they've been at this level for at least 2 or 3 seasons now. Probably an element of, if they look at Holy Cross and see how they move the ball, how it's all about the team, there's definitely got a sense, and I haven't seen all the highlights of it yet, or the ones get that coming across on the radio. There was a lot of individual play from Cashel that if they're to take the things to the next level, that they've got to work as a team better.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, Shane, when they came up last year, and from the Seamus Arena, I suppose you'd be kind of saying that their goal this year would be to consolidate themselves in the Premier Group, and they more than did that. Not only did they survive in the group, but they end up in a county quarter final. And played some really good hurling, claimed a few big scalps along the way. And it's a small thing, would have yielded them a little bit of silverware, particularly in the West final, where the Clonolty goalkeeper made some outstanding saves in that game, and Cashel could well have won the West final with a small little bit of luck. People were saying after last weekend, that they lost the junior as well to Holy Cross, as it happens on the Sunday, and that they had lost the under-19 the couple of days before as well, and that it was a bad week for Cashel. But I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I obviously you don't like losing, but the fact that they were in an under-19 county final, they're in the junior county quarter final and the senior county final, that has to be regarded as being a very good year for the club. And I think when they reflect on it, they'll realise that, and the next thing then for them is to actually build on it. I know what you're saying in terms of individual players, and obviously they have some outstanding individual players, the likes of the Connollys and the Oisin O'Donoghu's there as well, Ger Brown as well, Devin Ryan, but I understand what you're saying in terms of the team ethic. I think that's coming for them. It probably takes a while for it to build, and particularly when the pressure comes on and when you're under the cosh against other teams, it can be easy to resort to or revert to what you were used to maybe in the past. But they will have to get that element of their game right, and I definitely think that the experience of 2025 will stand to them going forward.
And I'm sure Fergie O'Loughlin and Owen Cadigan, like, they'll be more aware in the off season, maybe in terms of, okay, we know what we have, and maybe they can try a couple of different things there next year to think that will work in their favour. Like Holy Cross victory sets up a semi-final with Lockmore on Saturday week in Semple Stadium live on RT. Like, it should be a cracker. Like, I'd be saying, I'd love to have seen it the final, but if you're a Holy Cross, if there's a time to take out Lockmore, it's the semi. I think if you get to a final, they'll be hard beaten, and but Lockmore just look so hard beaten. Like, they're like, I would have thought like Toomevara had the tradition of Toom, battle hardened, like they would put Lockmore to the pin of their collar, and sure it was good as done by half time, Noel.
It was, and I suppose that's Lockmore, isn't it? They took on that challenge. They knew what they were facing. I suppose there was a lot of talk around the place last week about the fact that this was Toomevara's opportunity for revenge and all that. I'm not so sure that that's the way it really works out. Like, when you go out and you play a game, you miss the first ball, you're not going to be thinking, well, I missed 2 balls last year. You know what I mean? You don't think of those things in the heat of battle. You're playing the game that's in front of you, and that's about the size of it. It often makes for easy sort of punditry from the likes of ourselves, Shane, to be saying, it's revenge for last year or whatever. But I think really and truly each team was going to play the game that they see in front of them. Toomevara, I thought, like, they just never got into any kind of a flow in the match because they weren't let. Lockmore have this ability to just arm wrestle you, and to you're almost playing with one hand behind your back with the way that they go about their business. And like, we all say, the McGraths and all that outstanding players for Lockmore, but there's a hell of a lot more to that team, and you see the likes of Kieran McCormack, what he's doing as well in the forward line, and the Connellys.
Ed Connolly is one, I'd say, is probably coming into Liam Cahill's reckon. I mean, like, Liam would have known him up along. Like, he's a real Liam Cahill player. He loves he's athletic. He can score. He's athletic. He works. He's a workhorse. He's a guy that's had, I think, the last few weeks now, he's really in great form at the moment.
Yeah, and he showed it on the biggest stage, county championship, like, is the big stage. It's the shop window for all players who have ambitions of maybe getting a look in with the county team. And like, I suppose it's no surprise, we've watched Connolly quite a bit here in mid-tip, and the way he has developed into the kind of player that he is. But he's also linking very well with the other Lockmore players, and there's a real element of trust going on there between the players in the Lockmore team. Now, Liam McGrath is there too, like a really top class club forward. Maybe a bit overshadowed by the fact that Noel and Brian and John are such stars of that team. But Liam is a really, really good forward. Actually, was sick going into the game last weekend, so he'll be hoping to have that fully shaken off for the semi-final clash against Holy Cross.
And I think, like, haven't seen them. I think they're their hurling is always crisp, and I think their athleticism is gone to a new level this year. I think they're when they get on the ball, like they're powering past, like they're just their lower body, like their legs they're supremely fit, and I give Paul Tracy a lot of credit here. Like I think they're a team that think, okay, we won the county last year. The initial target is win the county again, but I think if they do get through Tipp, I think they have sights set on bigger things. I just think they really have a good platform there at the moment. Like, they won't be looking past the semi-final, but they really look like a team that have taken things on another gear.
Yeah, and they're probably driven on too by the fact that they haven't ever actually retained their county hurling title, and that's to retain your title is a big thing. We've seen in Tipp over the last couple of years, the title has changed hands every year for nearly 10 years at this stage. So it's a big challenge to retain your title, and I think that would be a big goal for Lockmore. There isn't an awful lot more history left for Lockmore to achieve. They've achieved so much over the last a decade or so in terms of doubles and all that type of thing, but to actually retain their hurling title, I think, will be a big thing for them. Again, like we're saying the last game, that in relation to the last game, the players don't really go out thinking that that we want to retain our title or we want to have a crack at Munster. They're thinking of the next game ahead of them, and they'll also be thinking that in Aidan Stakelum, their coach last year, who brought them to the county final and to win the county final, and a man for whom they had tremendous regard and respect, and they were very sorry to see him leave. Now Aidan is in the Holy Cross Ballycahill camp, in his own club camp, having been wrestled away from Lockmore by the manager Brendan Ryan, and I think Lockmore will be very conscious that Aidan knows them inside out, and knows their form, knows how they play, knows their thinking, and that could be a little maybe psychological advantage to Holy Cross Ballycahill when it comes down to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, that semi-final is on Saturday the 11th at 4:10 in Semple Stadium. Moving on to the second set of quarterfinals on the Sunday. Myself and yourself were in there. First one up, the amazing finish between Drummond and Lochmycarkey, 7-23 to 128 after extra time. Like, if you just looked at the score, you'd say this was an all-time classic. But up to about the 40th minute, it was tame enough. Mycarkey were in control. Drum were fighting hard, but were struggling to make anything gel. And then just the tactical shift, they put David Collins, who was completely ineffectual at centre forward, put him at the edge of the square, brought on David Butler, and just stuck high ball down, and it was just chaos after that.
It was the floodgates opened, I mean, an incredible stat there, Shane, that it was an 80-minute game with extra time and all that. After 40 minutes, Drummond had 8 points on the board, which was a fairly paltry return. But in the next 40 minutes, they scored 7-15, which it's crazy how the game worked out. Funny. At no stage until maybe 7 or 8 minutes from the end of extra time, at no stage did I really think Drum were going to win the match. You always felt that Mycarkey had something coming again, that they were coming. And in fairness, even though they took all those body blows with the goals, they kept coming back. But you just have to give huge credit to Drum for the way that they fought and the way that they got back into the game and created the goal chances. David Butler's experience was crucial when he came in, not just his presence, but I think his experience. And one of the goals that he took, ball broke down into the square, and Reece Shelley came out to shadow him, I think fully expecting David to pick the ball and turn and strike. and would have been there to try and affect the block down. But David just swiveled the hips and pulled on the ground back of the net. Totally took him by surprise. That's the kind of experience that you have, that the guy has, and that's the kind of ability that he has. But he just caused mayhem inside there, absolute mayhem. McCarthy just had no answer to him. And as you rightly point out as well,
so refreshing to see that. Like we don't see enough of the long ball there's a long ball and breaks won that game. Like Cormac Fitzpatrick's goal came off a ball into the square that broke to him. David Butler's goal. Like Seamus Callanan's second goal, that was the one that were off his back, that came off a ball that into Butler, he broke it down to himself and through his legs. Like just shows you how effective, like the sometimes like, you can overplay the stuff, and like if you have look, it won't work every day, but like they saw an avenue where early on Mike Harkey's full back line is there to be got at, and once they got the sense of it, they went for it.
Yeah, they didn't overcomplicate it. Was it the great Christy Heffernan, the Kilkenny player, said that hurling is a simple game, made complicated by people who should know better, you know, and it was a fair statement. I think, you know, that the Drummond Inch went direct, they went long, they got the ball out of their own backline as quickly as they could down into the danger zone where the new McCarthy couldn't score out of the full back line. And the danger was created up front, the mayhem was created up front, and it created the scores. But like, I think too, Shane, you know, and you referenced Shamey Callan there already. I mean, Shamey's influence on that game was huge. He had a game for the ages, really, from a club perspective. 2 super goals he took, you know, but it wasn't just that. He scored a point, and I'm trying to recall now, was it just after the extra time where he got the ball in his own back line, in his own half back line, broke through the players and raced the whole end of the field before hitting the ball over. A super score, absolutely super score, you know. And if we had seen him do it in Croke Park, we'd be raving about it for weeks, you know.
He's kind of there's definitely, like, he's away from the intercounty panel now, but he's a guy that's, I think he's a guy that we've known he's had his back issues and it has affected his maybe ability to perform to the high level. But he looks like a guy that he's found a way of getting himself right, that's able to get the best out of himself again. I saw against ourselves in Europe in the group match that, like, if he gets ahead of his team over 5 yards on a solo run, there's no catching him, even at 36. Like he seems to have found that bit of athleticism again, which is why playing him in the half forward line isn't. You're not weakening his ability anymore. It's actually probably the best, because if you have him inside, most defenders now and maybe on the turn will be able to slow him down. But if he gets the ball out the field, as you say, and runs at defenders like he did for his first goal and even for the second goal when he was held up and fell to the ground, like this, he's very hard to stop.
He is, like, he's a big man. He has a huge stride when he gets into that stride, you know. And I think you rightly pointed out there, when you are caught inside a corner forward, and God knows it has been the role of every coach, I suppose, has been to shove a guy who lacks a bit of pace into the corner, the worst place you can put him, you know, because at least if a guy lacks a little bit of pace, he can be moving constantly out on the half line or out on the middle of the field. But a corner forward, you need to be so fast over the first 5-10 yards. But Shamey's experience, though, is huge, Shane. You know, we all know that the career he had with Tipperary and all that, but it's just that kind of ability to read the game and to turn up where the ball is going to be. And he knows as well. I think he's probably learned maybe from playing in the half forward line when to expend energy and when not to expend energy. You know, he's reserving whatever he can. I just think that it looks to me as though he's really enjoying his hurling at the moment. And, you know, often guys, when they come into the kind of the twilight of their career, they realise that, you know, there mightn't be a whole lot many more years left at this level, and that your best years are behind you. And they start to enjoy it because they start to appreciate it and that. And Shamey just looks to me to be like that. You know, even after the game there, watching him coming off the field and that, he got a real buzz out of that victory, and I suppose naturally enough, because it was probably unexpected. You know, they had toppled the favourites to win the game, but he just looked to be beaming. You know, he really looked as though he was enjoying it. And when you have a guy with that kind of ability and enjoying his hurling like that and playing with that kind of freedom, well, it's a huge boost to Drummond Inch, and he really is a leader there for them.
Yeah, and I think you have to give great credit to the management team, and they're all local lads. I would have said, and you're closer to the ground, to the mid clubs. I thought they were a team that were underperforming for their ability for the last few years, and I think that's why maybe at the start of the year when the group stage was picked, if the Drum don't shake it up, they could finish bottom of the group. But they've shown themselves to be a second half team. We saw it against Lockmore, we saw it against Lura, we saw it against Clonoulty. They look like a team that are supremely fit now. They're really you don't recover like that just with quality hurling. They must have really put in the groundwork this year, and it's paying off.
Yeah, they have, and in the Lockmore game, they were very unlucky to lose out. It was a long range point from Aidan McGrath after a quick free that John McGrath played that nobody would have thought of playing.
They come from 8 down, so it was. I suppose that was the point I was making, that they never threw in the towel that night.
Yeah, exactly, and that was coming, Shane, off of a poor run in the mid championship, and we saw them in the mid championship, and I kind of thought a little bit like yourself. I thought Drum could be in bother this year. They weren't really playing that well. Didn't look to have much about them, but they slowly turned the ship around. I thought even against yourselves in the Lowry game, I was at that game up in Cloughjordan that night, and I thought that your lads were very unlucky not to get something from the game. I think it finished up 4 points, but Drum got a goal right at the very last play when Laura were pressing for an equaliser, and it maybe gave a kind of a skewed impression of the game, that there was a 4 point.
Even that night we saw David Collins won a couple of big puckouts or in the arena. Yeah. So there's it's not just Shamey and maybe the veteran, Collins is a veteran. They're really, and Johnny Ryan, give me his due, he had a big impact off the bench last Sunday. Robbie Long had a big game as well. So they're really getting their good players, maybe that, and there's probably a bit more to come from some, but they're really getting the key players hurling well again.
They are. Cormac Fitzpatrick contributed 1-3, I think, last week, and 3 of their subs came in off the field and scored. Jamie Bergen got a goal, David Butler got 2 goals, and Jack Lillis got a goal. So 4 goals off the bench, there's nothing wrong with that any time either, So they have players that can come in, and tellingly, I suppose, particularly with Jamie Bergen and Jack Lillis, they love the space that Semper Stadium affords. And Drummer like that. John Campion as well. John Campion had a great extra time for Drummond Inch, got through a hell of a lot of work at a time when other lads maybe were faltering with fatigue, and that John Campion was really good there. As was Podge Campion actually at centre back too, So I think Drummer in a really good place, and they'll really relish the semi final against Nina. They'll expect to have a right crack off Nina in that game,
So if you just before we finish up in this game, it's a word on Mike Harkey. God, I think this is a defeat that's going to hurt. Sometimes you lose quarterfinals, you're disappointed. I just think they were controlling that game for 45 minutes. Then the 3 goals went in, and in fairness to them, when they went 6 down, they actually found a new gear, and Jack Fallon and Killian Cantwell came on, and they got going again. And then at the start of extra time, they went 2 points up. There was times when you said they looked comfortably the better team, but they're just defensively. And I'm sure whether it's Eddie Brennan or whether they're going to go be next year, I'm sure the top of the list will be we can't be letting goals in like that if we're going to win a championship going forward.
Yeah, 7 goals, 21 points before you go anywhere else, Look, I think it's hard to describe what happened in that game. So many goals just went in. 7 goals past the Tipp goalkeeper, probably an all-star goalkeeper, And you
couldn't actually say he should have saved any of them. There was none of them you'd say were down to him. There were good finishes.
No, none of them. Maybe one positionally got slightly cut out positionally. I'm talking about the one that Shamie Callan hit off the ground, but
Yeah.
who expected Callan to throw the ball up and he lying on his
Yeah.
back and score a goal, you know? That took him totally by surprise. No, you couldn't say a word to Rhys Shelley, and indeed, I thought Rhys Shelley had a very good game, even though he let in 7 goals. His puck outs in the first half were outstanding, putting players directly onto ball, and that, like he has done with Tipp all year. But defensively, my Carkey Burrs have been mean enough throughout the year. Whatever happened in that game, it just in the mayhem of the quarterfinal tie, the whole thing of David Butler coming in, David Collins coming in, just causing absolute mayhem in there, and the balls just broke right for the forwards. I mean, on another day, a lot of those balls that break down, they bounce in a different direction and are cleared.
Yeah.
So I think my Carkey will definitely regard it as being a bit of a setback. It was a big blow to them to lose that game. They were favourites for it, and to lose it in the manner in which they lost it, it will really sting. I know they had a fair old job in trying to convince Eddie Brennan to come back this year. He had given 3 years there with the team, and the fact that he's going in with Kilkenny now next year with the senior team, I'm not sure that he'll come back, but I'd say they won't want to see him go either, because they've made great progress under him. But you know, the other point about O'Shane, I suppose, that Carkey Burrs would be a really attractive team for any potential coach out there, because they've clearly shown that they have great talent in the club, great potential in the club, and I'm sure any coach would love to get their hands on them to try and drive them forward again, you know.
Yeah, like they're in a quarter final. They're at the business end, like they're not far away. There was an element of freakishness what went on from 45 minutes on last weekend. So it was Drummond Inch. They're on into a semi-final against Nina on Sunday week. Nina 124-215 winners over Killer One. Not the derby match we expected. Probably expected a bit more cut, but in fairness to Nina, I always, even from an early stage, even though it was a 1-point game in the first half, I always thought they were the more controlled team. Even allowing for the fact that Killer One probably did take sucker punches with Jerome Cahill going off injured. It looked like Niall O'Mara got a bit of an injury just before half time too, that maybe a rib or something, and whether he was moved to the forwards because of it, or because maybe, I don't know, I was surprised when Thomas Cleary was taken off at half time, is that he was very effective for Killer One, and he was brought back on and he got on an awful lot of ball as well. But I thought Nina were comfortable, even though when Kieran Cahill got the goal with 5 minutes to go to bring it to a point, you say this is Killer One set up for them. But Nina, clinically, Ben West won the penalty, Jake stuck it away, and Nina pulled away to win by 5.
Yeah, this one I haven't seen all of this, Shane. Only bits and pieces, and following what I was following on the on radio and that, because the club were playing under 15 mid final at the same time. So I had to leave the stadium after the first game. But the one thing that kind of struck me about it, listening to it, was that sometimes with Nina, fairly quickly in the game whether they're on it or not. And I thought it was kind of evident from what we were listening to that Nina were on it. They were on their game. They were tuned in. They were rightly set up for this game, and they saw out the victory. It can often depend on which Nina team turns up, and I saw them playing their last round robin game against Mullinahone, and they were really impressive. I thought that they really showed a lot of that a lot of what they were being coached, the way that they were being coached, was beginning to click in with them. Granted, Mullinahone were at a bit of a low ebb at that particular time, but at the same time, Nina had to do their business. Going into this game then with Killer One, the question was going to be, could Killer One do enough to knock them off of their stride? And they certainly tried by all accounts. But I think Nina maybe showed a little bit of resilience that we haven't seen for a while. They were able to stave off the Killer One fight back and all that, and still emerge. So I think we're looking at the semi-final, and you're saying Drummond Inch or Nina are going to be in the county final. I think at the start of the year, if you've gone into a bookies and put money on Drum or Nina reaching the county final, you'd have gotten fairly good odds, fairly decent odds.
60, Nina might have been around 12, Drum probably further back.
Yeah, so I think this semi-final really, really affords an opportunity for one of those two clubs to to make something of the year, something really big. And who knows what happens when you get into a county final, So there's a real opportunity there. Probably a little bit of pressure on Nina now. They're probably going to be favourites again in this game. And that'll probably suit Drum and Inch down to the ground. But Nina have just shown a little bit. I think they've shown a little bit more spine, Shane, a little bit more steel in them this year than we have seen. Even the way they eked out the victory against Sarces in the first round, which kind of set their season up. Right, they had that defeat to Cashel, albeit one of those things that could have gone either way fairly easily, But
I thought it was an interesting thing at half time. There was a bit of messing going on from both sets of players going in under the tunnel, and Hugh Maloney, the Nina manager, was more or less annoyed with his own lads. He was grabbing his own lads by the jersey and get in. Like he said, cut out the messing, he just said, okay, there's. I just like that. I like that element. Okay, it's easy to maybe get sucked into with other lads, but no. Get inside and I just thought they were very focused. That I thought they got their setup right, like putting Mikey Heffernan in that centre forward, and he just drifted off Craig Morgan to great effect. Like he was outstanding all through, just giving that sort of license to go left, right, and centre, deep into the middle of the field. Like Barry Heffernan at that deep line centre back, he just took away Killerwan's long ball option. We saw how effective Killerwan wanted to play that long ball, and Keane Kelly had another big first half. Thomas Cleary was effective, but Nina just couldn't get that long ball to be as effective as they had or Killerwan couldn't get the long ball as effective. Tommy Heffernan off the bench, 3 points and played. I think that's a lovely option to have as well. And
absolutely,
And Jake at full forward. Jake it looks like he has some kind of a thumb problem, and just thought the way he was brilliant at the way he was able to manipulate some balls that were coming in. He knew he was going to be in pain, and he caught one brilliant one in his hand, and then there was other times when he was able to get out in front. He was able to switch to hurl, so he was able to catch it on the non-sore hand before switching it back. He just the cleverness of that to see. I just have to mind myself here. I am going to have to catch a sore one, but the other times and it just 3 points to play with brilliant penalty. And you throw in Mason Cawley, I thought another very, very good game. They're I still think there's more in them, but in terms of winning a derby match like that, where sometimes emotion can come into it, I thought Nina were very cool in the head. They didn't allow emotion to come into it. I thought they were very clinical in what they did.
Yeah, and Nina are looking at a situation now, Shane, where it's a small thing, could end up winning a county final for them. If they get over Drum Inch in the semi-final, which I suppose a lot of people would fancy them to do, they're set up for a final. Whether it's against Lockmore or Holy Cross remains to be seen. But I think they'll fancy themselves in the final. I think they'll fancy themselves as being a team that can really produce it on the big day. I mean, look, you've got class forwards there. Sam O'Farrell as well, a real worker and a guy who's achieved so much this year already. Could he round off the perfect year by winning a county senior hurling final? I wouldn't put it past them. But I think also defensively they're quite solid. And we talk about forwards a lot in different teams, but they're quite solid. As you mentioned, Barry Heffernan playing deep, player of vast experience as well. But you've also got Mason Cawley, as I said, and Paddy Murphy, Mark Carey, all experienced guys, and so I think Nina are in a good place going into this semi-final. Jake Morris, Hurler of the Year nominee. I don't think any defender in Tipperary would relish playing Jake Morris. Having to cope with him in a county semi-final or a county final.
I'll give me due. I thought Aaron Morgan had one of the clear ones better players on the day. He did as well as anybody could on him.
Yeah, and that's the point. That no matter how good you play on a guy like him, you can always be guaranteed that he's going to get a couple of scores, 2 or 3 points or whatever. And that's a huge thing for if you're the opposition fullback or whatever, and you can contain Jake Morris or confine him to 2 or 3 points. You're saying you have a great job done. But Jake's influence around the field is huge, and we saw that with Tipp as well. It's not just the fact that he's scoring now; it's his overall work rate and the way that he conducts himself on the field. And just as for the tunnel thing, as you mentioned, we saw a little bit of that as well on day one in the Saturday afternoon. And it looked to me as though a lot of the players didn't actually realise that they couldn't go in together, because there seemed to be people kind of shepherding one team to one side, and maybe it was simply a case of that it hadn't been communicated to the players that one team will go in first. Which is something that I suppose we've seen.
I don't think that was in. There was a bit of chawing going on with a couple of players coming in off the field, and I'd say it was just continuing. It was just one of those things. It was only minor handbag stuff, but I thought it was
local derby stuff.
that one of the managers made sure it didn't continue. He focused on his own lads, playing more part in it rather than getting involved with the other team, which is effective. So I suppose looking into senior relegation, it's my own Laura up against Mullinahone. Laura lost to Roscrea 121-118 on Saturday. Just a tight game most of the way through. It had Laura, we were 1 or 2 points up midway through the second half and hit 3 wides in a row, and then Nina or Roscrea then reeled off 5 points and 5 shots. I thought that was the key moment in the game. And then Sunday, Clonoulty 9-point winners over Mullinahone. I thought it was tighter than that. I suppose maybe Clonoulty probably picked off a few scores at the end when Mullinahone realised they weren't going to win it. But I thought it was a good win for Clonoulty. I thought maybe if they were mentally weren't right after the Drummond-Inch defeat, that they could have been a bit vulnerable, but like they got the job done. And I suppose we do have a final now. It's a repeat of the 2020 Seamus Arene final. So it's essentially the same prize. Once that year it was what the winner goes senior. So this year it's the winner stays senior, but the only difference is no trophy. But it's probably as important a game as it was 5 years ago for Laura and Mullinahone.
Yeah, that's a fair way of describing it, Shane. It's the same game, but without the trophy. Yeah, as I say, I saw Laura earlier on in the year and twice actually this year, and I was quite impressed with the way that they were playing, to be perfectly honest with you. And not saying it because I'm talking to you or anything like that. I would have said to a number of people before. I thought Laura were exceptionally unlucky this year to find themselves in this position. As you say, but look, that's the way it can go. It can
I'd say Mullinahone are probably the same too. Like they had a great performance against Sarsfields just maybe towards the end. Like it just shows you this competitiveness of you can actually play well in Tipperary and even in Premier Intermediate, but not get the results and find yourselves in a situation where you could be relegated. And that's you look at Waterford and you see there's no contest with Ballygunner at the top end, but like you see how competitive is the Tip. Like you could have good teams going down.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, and like that's I suppose what I was alluding to, the fact that you know you can be playing very well and just coming out on the wrong side of results marginally and find yourself in this position. Like Clonoulty, right? They've survived now and all that, but Clonoulty won the West final, found themselves in the preliminary quarter final, and would have had designs on going much further.
Yeah.
Instead, they found themselves playing out relegation. I kind of thought that they would win that game, to be honest. I thought that they were better than Mullinahone and that they were going to come through it. The only question mark being how they will cope with the pressure of it, because relegation, as you know, is it's a peculiar animal, and generally speaking, the team that copes better with the pressure of the game and all of that is the team that will emerge. Looking at the final of yourselves and Mullinahone in the final, Mullinahone are on a poor run. I think they've lost games, maybe not playing all that well. I think maybe Laura have lost games playing probably decently. So I'd nearly be giving the nod to Laura in this game, but as I say, it comes down to which team wants it most and which team copes with the pressure of the occasion the better.
Yeah, I just noticed that Jack Shelley didn't play last weekend, and who's to say a certain E. Kelly wouldn't don the jersey one more time, maybe to maybe just to hold on to Mullinahone senior status. Was like it's all important.
Sure. John Lahey might turn out as well, Shane. You never know.
You never know. So we'll probably look ahead to that game more next week. Just on Premier Intermediate, Noel, we see in senior 3 mid teams in the semi-finals, in Premier Intermediates 3 mid teams as well. Like definitely the mid division is having a great year. You have Borlahan, Upper Church, Drumban, Glencoe and Gould into the semi-finals, and with Carrick Swan. And I think it's a great credit, particularly to the Swan, Glencoe and Upper Church, the 3 teams that got to the semi-finals last year. Swan got to the final, are back there again. Like that's, and in such a competitive competition, it's like that's fair going to negotiate that minimum.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is, Shane. For any club to get back there, I mean, you take the seniors. Well, Lockmore, the only club to get back there to semi-final after last year as well. And yeah, as you say, for the 3 teams to be back at that stage, they've come through a bruising enough campaign, to get there. Glencoe have been impressive enough, won the mid championship and come through very well. Upper Church have had a more difficult route. They weren't playing particularly well early on, but recovered to get back to county semi-final as well. It's a hard call to see who's going to come through those games. But I suppose 3 teams from one division up again, and then the Swan up against the
Swan are probably the favourites.
I think Swans in particular. Yeah, exactly. But I think Swans in particular deserve a lot of credit here because, losing the county final last year to Cashel was a difficult one. They had a player sent off midway through the second half, and it had a huge influence on the outcome of the game. And Swans were playing quite well up to that point, and it could easily have gone.
Yeah, there was a kind of a free goal there too that got Cashel a bit of. Like they were the better team until then, that midway through that quarter, that final last year.
They were, and like they could easily have kind of taken that hit, hard, and maybe took them a long time to get over it or whatever. But I don't think they did that. I think they just got back on the horse straight away, and they find themselves back in the county semi-final again in a pitch that they like playing in. They love playing in St. Stadium. They love that space, and I'm looking forward to seeing that game. I think it'll be a great game, and thankfully we have 2 double headers on in the stadium for the semi-finals, so we'll see the 2 Premier Intermediate semi-finals along with the 2 senior semi-finals, which makes for a great weekend again.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Carrick Swan Borderland semi-final is 1:30 on Saturday before Holy Cross and Lockmore, and then the second semi-final, Glencoe against Upper Church. This was disappointing for one of them. Both of them lost the semi-finals last year, so one of them is going to get that taste again, unfortunately, but one is able to go to the final. I think that'll be a very, very tight one. That's on as the curtain raiser to Nina and Drum on the Sunday. In intermediate hurling, the West is where it's at this year. You have 3 West teams in the semi-finals. Capo White got a late goal to beat Ballingarry, last year's defeated finalists, so they're through. They will play Golden Kilfeacle in the repeat of the West final, where Capo White scored 3 goals at the death to shock Golden. So I'd say Golden won't need any motivation for that one. Golden overcame Arravale Rovers in high scoring game last Saturday in the other semi-final. Knockavilla, Donegal, Kickhams, they beat Mile Rovers. They played Borsicane, who probably played Kilsheelan, Kilcashan, one of the thrilling games of last weekend, 422-420, that quarter-final win in Templemore. So then I suppose this weekend is football quarter-final weekend. Just looking out at the weather, it's not looking hectic, but like you're probably looking at Noel, you're looking at Lockmore against Ballina. Lockmore will be fancy to go through there. It'll be interesting to see whether they'll have one eye in the hurling, and like we know how strong their panel is, whether they'll maybe rest a couple of guys from the start. You'll never know. You have, of course, Commercials and Mile Rovers is the big one. Like that's and while if you're a Mile Rovers person, you think it's a tough draw, but if there's a time to maybe beat Commercials, it's before they get to a final, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that Lockmore do this resting of players thing. I think they might maybe they'll go out strong to win that game, and maybe if they're afforded the opportunity to rest a few players towards the end of the game rather than at the start of it, they might take that opportunity. Yeah, look, Commercials sure look one of the standout teams in Tipperary always, and would have lost the county final last year to Lockmore, and don't like seeing Lockmore coming up against them. So, but they have to do their own business first, and they have been moving well. They've been going a little bit under the radar this year, maybe. It's a kind of a more low key approach, but certainly, a really, really good side, a really, really good club team, and you'd expect them to come through there as well.
Absolutely, and the other two quarterfinals, I think Kilsheelan and Kilcash will have a great chance against JK Brackens on Saturday. I think Kilsheelan have been going well in both codes this year, playing very open, attractive hurling and football. So I think that could be tasty enough. And Upper Sherstrand would be favoured over Harlow Gales in the other quarterfinal on Saturday. And just before we go, I just want to make people aware maybe of an event that's coming up that I am myself. I can't see them. Yeah, here we go. I'm taking part in the Tipperary Quid Game fundraiser in December, and part of my fundraising event, I have to raise $3,000 to take part, and I'm having a meet and greet with the All-Ireland champions in the Abbey Court on Friday, the 24th of October, which is County Hurling final weekend. We'll have Liam Cahill there. Alan Tynan is confirmed. There's a couple more that I'm waiting to get thumbs up from, so I won't say yet, but it's €20 in. It's myself and Will O'Callaghan of Off the Balls Hurling Pod will be there moderating. So it'll just a lovely, nice, relaxed night. The lads on stage going back through the year, and we'll have plenty of time for maybe questions from the floor in terms of we want I know I just slipped off there. We just want I suppose, and all the money raised will go towards the Quid Game fundraiser, my nominated charity, the Dylan Quirk Foundation, and also there'll be a donation from the Quid Game fundraiser for Skull Cormac in Cashel. So that event is coming out. Those tickets can be purchased on the Eventbrite website, so €20 in. Should be a great night. Wear your colours. You want to get photographs taken with whoever who'll be there in the night. It's more than welcome to. So be a nice, I think, heading up to, and it'll be a nice county final weekend starter offer too. And we're kind of getting to a point, Noel, where when the county final is over, we'll be able to reminisce a small bit more on what Tipp achieved this year. And I bumped into a man in Nina there yesterday, and he's kind of still on a high after the year, and it's but then it's going to come to a point. I know Tipp are going away and for their holiday in November, and that as soon as they get back, it's 2025 is in the rearview mirror. It's 2026 then. So it's it's when you think about it now, it's still hard to pinch yourself what they achieved this year.
Yeah, it absolutely is, Shane, and I think being out and about at all the matches since, the achievement has given Gales and Tipperary a massive boost and a massive lift, and there's a real appetite for hurling there in the club championships, and that when you think about it, Shane, the clubs are back in action on the Wednesday after the All Ireland, so there was very little time to actually savor the whole thing. When you think the homecoming was on the Monday night and all that, and the club action was back in so quickly, and it has been at breakneck speed since, really. So when the county championships are over, and we can take a deep breath and really appreciate what was achieved here, because you and I have covered a lot of Tipp games back through the years, and there are a few games which left us with as satisfied a feeling as that All Ireland final, and people say to me, how come it was so special? Why do we regard this as being so special? And it was probably because it was so unexpected, really, at the start of the year. We would turn around and win the All Ireland, and we've said a lot before about the players and the management team and the type of credit they deserve, enormous credit for what they've achieved. But I think it'll be lovely to actually reflect on it fully, and that night in Nina will be one of those occasions, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of other occasions like that too, where we'll be actually able to sit back and chat it all out and relive all those great days from Páirc Uí Chaoimh, not so great days maybe, down to Cusack Ennis and on to O'Moore Park in Portlaoise, and then down to Gaelic grounds before finally hitting Croke Park for those magnificent semi-final and final occasions.
Yeah, it's about the night itself. I'd say it'd be relaxed and conversational. It's about, I suppose, teasing things out a small bit, and you mentioned that the Cork games, but I actually thought the second Cork game actually ended up inadvertently being like very important in that a lot of people wrote it off. Tipp played with 14 men that day. You take nothing from it, but I think the management looked at it and said, okay, we've lost the same way like we did in the league final. We need to change it up. They changed Rhys Shelley and they brought in Andrew Ormond, and like they were two massive changes. And also they went down the man marking route in defence after that. They didn't like Ronan probably was a little vulnerable at centre back up until then, but then Ronan sort of got the big man job. He went on Peter Duggan and Michael Kiley, and it seemed to suit our players more when, even though maybe they mightn't have been playing in the position they would have liked, once they knew their role, actually they became way more comfortable in what they were asked to do.
Yeah, and like it like, you know, people have been talking about this campaign and how it unfolded and all that, and in discussions with people, you know, people have said, you know, how did it turn about and all the rest of that. I think one of the crucial things about it was that and I've referenced the 2014 All-Ireland final and replay where Tipp went out in the replay to do exactly the same thing to Kilkenny as they did in the drawn game, but Kilkenny said, no, we're not allowing that, we're playing a different style, and they beat us. And I think it was something similar with Tipp this year in the Cork thing. You know, Cork probably went out to do to us in the All-Ireland what they did in the league final and what they did in the first round of the championship. But the Tipp team had learned from it. The management team had really put a lot of work into how they were going to set up. They learned from those games, and they perfected the plan for the final. And the curious thing too, you know, you mentioned Andrew Ormond and the role that he played with Tipperary, and you'd have to ask the question, you know, would Andrew have been given that role had Darren McCarthy not been sent off in that game in the first round of the championship against Cork, you know? But talk about a guy grabbing his opportunity with both hands and becoming a pivotal player in that forward line. It was an inspired move, because to start with centre forward, because suddenly it allowed Jake Morris a lot more freedom. Jake was kind of playing that role to some degree and was expected to do a lot of that work. And suddenly then Andrew Ormond came in and freed up Jake that little bit more. So look, a lot of things fell right for us this year, but a lot of things were made to fall right thanks to the work of the management team and the players. I thought it was an exceptional team performance, all-round team, from backroom team to player. They did an awful lot of stuff so right, Shane, this year, and they got their just rewards for it.
Yeah, and like, if you're, just to wrap this up, I suppose just looking ahead to next year, you think we ended up being All-Ireland champions coming in kind of on a low ebb. You're kind of excited to know now that we're going into next year. I wouldn't say we won't be caught with, but on a high and sort of confidence and loads of belief that how better could they get. Like I don't for 1 minute think they'll be getting ahead of themselves. And the one thing it annoys me every time we win an All-Ireland is, and it comes from outside the county. I know it's a bit of a wind up that you have to Tipp having won back-to-backs in 65, and like that's All-Ireland's a too hard one to downplay, winning one All-Ireland, that you have to win 2 in a row for it to be a proper All-Ireland. So like maybe they'll use something like that to get between their teeth, but like I think that's always dangerous stuff. It's, you look at Munster, it's, you have to win. You have to get out of Munster first, and I don't think Tipp will be looking beyond that next year. Like, if you offered me Tipperary third place in Munster next year, right now, I'd snap your hand off. So I would.
Yeah, Munster's a minefield. You know, you have a full championship play by the time you get out of Munster. You know, and there's so many potential banana skins there that you know, it's just very, very difficult. Like, next year we'll be going to Limerick, we'll be going to Waterford, we'll have Cork coming here.
Home, and you have to think and they have a new management team. They could come with something completely different next year that we just don't know yet.
Yeah. But I agree with you with the whole back-to-back thing or the 2 in a row thing. Like, I don't think the management team will be focusing on 2 in a row at all. I think they'll be focusing on winning whatever they can win next year. And if it turns out that you win 2 in a row, so be it. But next year is a new year. Every game is a new game, new championship, starting with the first round of the league, because with the first round of the league against Galway this year, saw players come in. So Robert Dial came in as sub, made his debut, and ends up being a nomination for the Young Player of the Year. Like, so that's the way it goes. Every single game can throw up something, and I'm sure when they're on their team holiday sunning themselves, Liam Carroll won't be shy about telling the players that too, that there's opportunities there for guys who want to put their hand up and stake a claim.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. I suppose the things we'll touch on next year, or when we're looking to 2026, like Tipp had no choice but to go hard for last year's league just to build up confidence and momentum. Like, will they change tack? Will next year's league be about maybe blooding more players, or or will they go with the same thing? We'll try and put out maybe 12 or 13 of our strongest team every day, and maybe blood 2 or 3 lads alongside it and keep the momentum going. Like, it'll be fascinating to see how that works. Like, so just a reminder, the night of the All-Ireland Champions, Friday the 24th, to kind of be meet and greet from about 7:15. The show begins at 8. Probably hopefully an hour and a half, 2 hours, plenty of chat, and hopefully good conversation. And I'll say all the money goes to the Twig Game fundraiser of my charity is the Dylan Quirk Foundation. So I want to thank Noel Dundon once again for chatting about last weekend's games, and we'll be back next week to preview semi-final weekend. Bye for now.